I thought about doing the open. Then we had breaking news. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and act it as normal, and then we'll get into the show. So happy Monday. Good to see you. About an hour before we came on this morning, hammer fell, axe dropped, pick your cliche. Eric Ten Hag out at Manchester United. And once again, and this is where I am waiting for Drew Dickinson in the 3D for a return. And I don't know if this will draw Drew further back from making any kind of a comment, or it will, spur him forward even faster. Sacked this morning. Decision's going to cost United around £13.5 million. Started in April of 2022. Club making an official statement on their website this morning, the wording of which I found somewhat interesting. So let's get into the wording of the release, as Ruud van Nistelrooy, who was appointed as one of Ten Hag's assistants in the summer, has been placed in temporary charge until a permanent replacement has been found. So getting into what Manchester United said, and like I said, it was an interesting choice of words. Club statement. 7.2 million reach already in about an hour. Erik ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United's men's first team manager. I don't know if he left in as much as everybody with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos in the front office was like, brothers, the door. Appointed April 22, 2 domestic trophies, winning Carabao Cup in 23, FA Cup in 24. We are grateful to Eric for everything he has done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the team as interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, whilst a permanent head coach is recruited. So the sum total of 4 sentences, about an hour and a half ago, hour and 18 minutes ago. Erik ten Hag out at Manchester United. So going from here, 115 days since United opted to extend his contract by 12 months after the hierarchy decided, this is James Ducker at the Telegraph, decided against sacking him in the wake of a 2.5-month internal review conversations with at least 6 other managers. Finished 8th in the Premier League last year, saved by winning the FA Cup, is what the conventional wisdom is. Ducker, quote, United have endured a wretched start to the season with Sunday's controversial 2-1 loss at West Ham. The club's 4th defeat in 9 Premier League games left United 14th in the Premier League with a negative goal difference. We will get into this particular call and everything else, reffing down here related. That'll be in hour number 2. Bart will join us to talk about the women's national team and some cool moments from that, in addition to the reffing down here from England, moments in MLS, stuff across the board that Bart is bringing to the table. So the cost of sacking Ten Hag would have been higher than the £13.5 million, but he was forced to take a reduction on his £9 million a year salary after failing to qualify for Champions League. 1-year extension over the summer ensures he secures the payout to cover the remaining 20 months on his deal that expires in June of 2026. Senior sources close to talks declined to comment on a precise figure. Mourinho's £20 million comp deal in 2018 remains the most expensive sacking in club history, and the sacking comes just 4 months after the club announced it would be making 250 job losses or redundancies or whatever the word you want to use. They would be eliminating 250 jobs as a part of efforts to make the club more sustainable. Bruno Fernandez went on Instagram. Thanks for everything, boss. The 15-game XG trend lines from August 22nd to October of 24. XG and XG conceded. XG was at its highest at the midpoint of this run in 23. Right now, XG is slightly higher than XG allowed. Is this the lowest point of this franchise after Sir Alex Ferguson? That's a question out there this morning. Ten Hag's win ratio is only second to Jose Mourinho post the Sir Alex Ferguson era. David Moyes at 52.9%, Van Gaal at 52.4%, Mourinho 58.3%, Solskjaer at 54.2%, Ten Hag at 54.7%. So of the it's Jose Mourinho and Eric Ten Hag 1-2, and then Solskjaer slightly less than it was David Moyes and Louis Van Gaal. But in that post Alex Ferguson shtick, you have 5 different managers who really weren't necessarily given a whole lot of time per se. And in the day and age of instant return, it's like, what have you done for me now? What have you done for me, last week? What are you doing for me tomorrow? But you have 5 dudes who come at things differently. And then you expect an instant result from the new guy after the old guy had done things stylistically, and then you're having to look for something else. Next morning. Yeah, Rich is in this morning. Ten Hag out, time to celebrate. But the way that Rich says Ten Hag's out, time to celebrate. Well, this could be Frank Burns syndrome from the swamp and MASH. You could get a really cool roommate, or you could end up with Charles Emerson Winchester III. Literally, this is you lose Henry Blake, you get Sherman T. Potter. What do you want for your roommate? What do you want for your commanding officer now? You lose Henry Blake, you get Frank Burns as your CO. Do you want that? No, you want Sherman T. Potter. But you had to get through Frank Burns to get to Sherman T. Potter. You had Frank as your roommate. Could have been a worse roommate, but you end up with Charles Emerson Winchester III. That's what you're staring at here. Next, Mourinho in. Jose's ready to go. I don't know if he's ready to come back to Manchester United, though, because he offered up his services, you'll remember, last week. While he's employed in the Turkish Premier League, he offered up, after the activity in European football, he offered up his services to a lower-end Premier League side. Right now, Manchester United would qualify considering they're 14th. Sean, so when is Manchester United going to figure out that coaching isn't the issue? I don't know, Sean, if they ever are. That's the larger point in all of this. I don't know if they ever are. Problem's not me, it's you. But how many times can you sit there and say the problem is you when it's really me? Ego will deny us that. And especially large egos, they will deny that idea. Ego and financials now, anyway. Morning, Alex. Rich. He's digging the Glance LED. All right, so let me pull that back briefly. All right, so here's the story behind our buddies from Glance. Glance LED, they do boards of various sizes. This was the one that could fit for the time being, because if I go any larger, it's got to go up here for those of you who are watching us this morning, and it would take out some of the hats in the grid. I don't have a drop down where it would, kind of cover over the gap where the curtain rod is. It would have to be there, and it would have to be a drop down, and it would have to be something that would that would have to be stable enough for something like that. But otherwise, it's going to have to be up here. But it's from our friends at Glance LED. Well, Sean, we're glad to have you back. So Glance LED, they got 3 various sizes of these kinds of boards. And they've got this one, they've got one that's about that long, the width of the monitor here, and then they have one that is truly lengthy that is, and you can scroll it or you can do whatever, and you can do stats, stocks, scores, news, whatever. You can set your preferences because it's attached to your Wi-Fi, as it says right here. The Wi-Fi in wherever you have it set up. So you can go to their website, and you may see that show up right here. There's your selection, glancesetup.com. And this is truly unsolicited, by the way. This was something that I thought was cool, that I thought we needed to have to add for all the news of the morning and things like that. But no, it's our friends from Glance LED, and they are taking me down a very dangerous path. So anyway, all right. So Ten Hog, is that for a right turn? But no, I mean, you had dudes that were, 5 different dudes. You had 5 different dudes philosophically, and then you turn around and you don't give them time to sit there and calm things down. Would this necessarily have been an unsurprising result? We'll get into the numbers in a sec. Leicester's upcoming matches. 4th round of the Carabao Cup, home to Leicester, home to Chelsea, home to PAOK in the Europa League, home to Leicester in the Prem, and you go to Ipswich in the Prem, home to Bodo Glimt in the Europa, and home to Everton in the Prem. The next 7 are very, very favorable to anything resembling Ruud van Nistelrooy and what he wants to try and accomplish in the short term, calm things down. This will give you that bump. It'll give you that vote of confidence because it's short of anybody else. I mean, literally, Leicester in the Carabao Cup, so it's Leicester, home to Chelsea, home to PAOK, home to Leicester in the Prem, at Ipswich, home to Bodo Glimt, home to Everton. That's your next 7 in all comps. That should give you the false sense of security. Hey, we've won a couple in a row. Well, who'd you play? Well, we played Ipswich and Leicester and Everton. So, yeah, that's what you're that's what you're staring at. Obviously, the polls are up in the British media this morning, where hey, was this the right choice? Well, was it? Is it going to be? Martin Samuel's headline at the Times that Manchester United is a shrinking Leviathan. I always thought that Leviathan was like a really scary movie from the 90s with Peter Weller. So, total the decision Monday morning after the 2-1 defeat by West Ham. Next match against Leicester in the Carabao Cup Wednesday. Club sources, according to the Times newspaper, said it was a difficult decision, but that results and performances have not been good enough to allow the Dutchman to continue his position. Sources added there were, quote, no excuses for the club's recent performances. Given the backing of the board and the ownership over the summer, having spoken to other candidates, including Thomas Tuchel, just think if Tuchel had waited instead of taking the national team gig, he hadn't started yet. Tuchel, Kieran McKenna, Mauricio Pochettino, they stuck with Ten Hag, triggered the 1-year extension option to keep him at the club till 2026. We mentioned the win percentage. David Moyes in 34 matches. Points per game, 1.68. 150% of them, 32.4% loss. So while Erik Ten Hag was second in win percentage of the 5 post-Sir Alex, second in the loss percentage, Moyes at 32.4, Erik Ten Hag at 31.8. Jose Mourinho at 18.3, Ole at 22, Louis van Gaal at 23.7, Ralph Rangnick at 29.2. Points per game post-Sir Alex, Mourinho 1.89, Ole 1.81, Van Gaal 1.79, Ten Hag 1.72, Moyes 1.68, Ralph Rangnick 1.54. So six managers outside of Sir Alex in the Premier League era Points per match average, Ten Hag is 4th. Win percentage, 2nd. Loss percentage, 2nd. Leaky at the back, Manchester United giving up 165 goals since the start of the 22-23 season in all competitions. West Ham first, by the way, at 180. Man U, Wolves, Bournemouth all at 165, Nottingham Forest at 161. 200 million pounds spent in the summer to strengthen the team that fit the philosophy. So what do? You only give them a handful of matches. Averaging 1.2 points per match, 1 point in the Europa League. Decision was made on Monday. Manchester United conceded 3 goals or more 24 times under Erik ten Hag, tied for Bournemouth for most of any Premier League club during that time. Wolves, Forest, 23, West Ham, 22. Thanks to our friends at Opta for that. Chief Exec Omar Barada, Sporting Director Dan Ashworth, Technical Director Jason Wilcox recommended the change. Sources said everything had been put, and this is from the Times. Sources said everything had been put in place to help Ten Hag improve on last season's poor campaign, but there has not been any progress. And yet another newspaper with yet another poll. So obviously, as the morning goes on, anybody want to discuss that? We've got that to talk about. Like I said, Bart's coming up top of the next hour to discuss reffing down here. One of the moments that Ten Hag lashed out about that caused the loss to West Ham, that in turn caused him to leave his role at Manchester United. He left. No, you fired him. He's still going to get paid. He left. No, you fired him. I love the wording there. Yes, and Rich says, of course, there's the Pochettino to Manchester United posts. And Turner, you're probably not wrong. Turner's looking forward to being back here in about 18 months. Like I said, you ain't wrong. Alex is wondering about Leviathan, the movie. Is that the one where they have to breathe liquid to go so deep? I think that's the one. And then it turned out bad. See, now that since we're in opening kickoff, I can do this. Yeah, the high guess from Turner. Let's see. IMDb, Leviathan. Where's the IMDb? Here we go. Leviathan, 1989. Perched on the hull of a wrecked Soviet freighter, a team of deep-sea miners led by head oceanographer Stephen Beck comes face-to-face with a mutant creature that's the product of a failed genetic experiment. Peter Weller, Richard Crenna, Amanda Pace, Daniel Stern. Wow. Daniel Stern, when they were trying to get him out of things like the Wonder Years. Ernie Hudson, Lisa Eilbacher, Hector Elizondo, Meg Foster. Apparently, in one of the scenes where the piece of the monster is cut off by the door, the wire that pulls the cutoff piece down can be seen. So, deep sea angst was Leviathan back in 1989. We'll get into Atlanta United also this hour. We've got the highlights, have some posts from Rob Valentino to get into, but obviously this being opening kickoff and this morning. No, Sean, of course the show hasn't changed. No, of course not. With your host, the morning show equivalent of a golden retriever. Oh, squirrel. Yeah, we go that way. Actually, here, let me do this a little bit. Okay, so there's your opening kickoff. Pars has a question. We'll get into it. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. It was a rather roundabout way of getting into opening kickoff by having breaking news. There's your QR code for those of you who are hanging out with us, however you were doing so this morning, whether it is on the YouTubes, whether it is on Twitch, whether it's on the 280-character app. You can hang out and use that QR code. Go to Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Start your day there. When you check out, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So, obviously, the question from Pars is about Brooks Lennon. Don't know about Brooks yet. I think that Rob was going to give the team a couple of days off because in the post-match press conference after the loss in Fort Lauderdale, he did mention that that there was going to be giving folks a couple days off, and so that's where Atlanta United is right now after clocking 4,200 miles on planes, playing 3 matches in 6 days, going from Atlanta to Orlando on decision day. You get that done, you fly home. Midweek, you fly from Atlanta to Montreal. The midweek, you win that, you come home. So you had a win in Orlando. You had the win in PKs in Montreal. You fly home again. Then you have to fly to the Erector Set in Fort Lauderdale to take on Inter Miami and Messi and friends in game 1 of the 3-game series, the maximum 3-game series, best of 3, with Atlanta United taking on Messi and friends. And number 2 match of this series will be this weekend. Anticipate that it's going to be a full house. Upper Tank should be available and open. Haven't heard yet. But the injuries are a concern, obviously, with Brooks and the shoulder, Stian and the leg injury. No early word yet on them and the state of the injury, state of recovery, what have you. Remember, Ronald Hernandez had become ill earlier that morning or during the trip. He could not be a substitute, so it ended up being Luis Abram and Noah Cobb on the right-hand side. We'll get into the SOFA score and get into the numbers and coming up in just a bit. So you're looking at choices for Rob Valentino in match number 2 coming up on the weekend. So we'll see what happens involving the injuries with Brooks and Stian. Don't have any answers yet. Don't have any updates yet. And to Abby's point that she makes here this morning, Abby's even if they popped it back in or it's an AC separation, you need more than a week to recover. So we'll see what happens there. Only keeping 2 levels from what Abby's hearing right now. Going to open, not going to 3rd level open. Suppose it can change. Probably demand with travel with traffic. Pars, can there not be a rule around that much travel in that number of days? That would be a discussion to have with the league office in New York and television partners. Remember, TV partners are planning an episodic television series. And so that's just where things are, because if they set the date for match number 1 and you're the marquee team, you're going to get that first date push. So that means Friday. We do have an update on Ian Frey, by the way, Pars. We'll get into that too. And it's not as bad as an ACL tear, but we do have news on that. So right now, if you're looking at it from a television perspective, your premiere of your next season, think of it as like the fall premiere. You know, you roll things out in a November book. You know, you get your new episodes of Law and Order SVU. You know, new crimes being solved. You know, new surprise guest stars, that kind of a thing. Friday night begins the playoffs. You're going to want to have Messi and friends as your premiere. Draw the most eyes to your product out of the blocks for season 3, and I mean that by season 2 really in Major League Soccer. You don't have a non-conference schedule, a conference schedule, and then playoffs. So the second season, if you want to call preseason, regular season, postseason, we'll go season 3 now. So season 3 being your postseason, you're going to want to have your big premiere. And so that means Messi and friends are going to be your premiere Friday night. So whoever plays Messi and friends, it's going to be the same way. I mean, it was either going to be Atlanta or Montreal in the quick turn. It just so happened that Atlanta won, got in, had the wild card, and then won that to advance. That's just how the schedule laid out. You know, you want to try to come up with some kind of a midpoint from the end of the regular season Saturday night to a wild card situation to then turn around and go, okay, we need to get to Fort Lauderdale. So think about this as a television show. Think about the postseason as a new round of new episodes for a television show. You're going to want to program your stars, your special guest stars, all that stuff out of the blocks Friday night. New season, you're going to have all of the stars. So that's how whoever came out of the Eastern Conference wild card was going to be that Friday night. So we'll see. We'll see where it lays out. But what happened there, once again, is that you had a team that showed fortitude upon fortitude. We'll roll through the highlights here, and I do have some posts from Rob Valentino about internal workings inside the match in and of itself. So early on, and you'll hear Mike's call, and for Mike, it was he's spot on. There's nothing wrong with what Mike said coming out of the blocks. 90 seconds in, courtesy of our friends at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Messi and Friends go up 1-0, courtesy of and Friends.
Williams sent forward by Gregerson, but then given away by Schleich. On the far side now, here is Suarez, dribbling to the penalty spot, shooting and scoring. Well, that's not a good start. 90 seconds into the match, it's 1-0 Miami.
So then it's 1-0. Like I said, we'll get into the stats and the numbers coming up in just a sec. So after 1-0 Miami, 14 minutes later, I think you lose Brooks. And so then that forces in your decision starting with Luis Abram, and eventually after you lose Stian, then that means Noah Cobb. But you lose Brooks, and then you're kind of fighting through the rest of the first half. 39th minute, you end up with a moment that draws you level. Here's Mike once again. Mike and Jason, courtesy of 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.
He'll turn and dribble into the attacking third in the left channel. Popped ahead to Amador near corner. Amador dribbling parallel to goal. Scooted ahead to Saba. Enter the six. Shot! Score! Score! Listen all you all! It's a sabotage! Atlanta United! 2 starters knocked out of the first half! Conceding in the second minute, out of nowhere, they've tied the game in the 39th minute.
Oh my God, it's on the run. I'm telling you, it's sabotage.
So you're at 1-1. 1-1 to the break. And like I said, Brad Gazan, we'll get into Brad's numbers coming up in a bit. So 1-1, you're fighting and you're gripping and you're hanging with them. And then it's just a moment where you have to tip your hat. You really do. You just tip your hat for Jordi Alba connecting from distance to make it 2-1 with 30 to go.
Back to Messi at the far touchline. Dribbling now on McCarty. Wide open in the central channel. Jordi Alba with a shot. Score! Golazo. It took a rocket from outside of 30 yards to finally beat Brad Guzan and put Miami back in front.
And so you end up with that at 2-1. Atlanta United had chances and opportunities in the final 30 minutes. Ends up 2-1. Messi and Friends take game number 1 of this series to set up Saturday night at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And it's a chance for Atlanta United to equalize in the series at a match apiece, game apiece, however you want to phrase it. And then that would take it to a game number 3. So let's get into Rob Valentino's post. And this was a conversation, the back and forth he had with Jason, once again, courtesy of Atlanta United, about the changes he had to make in match. It's about 2 minutes long. 2 questions with Jason about the changes that he had to make and finding things out on the fly, meaning the folks that were there out on the field finding things out on the fly about themselves, possibly to give you some preview toward game number 2.
Back to Messi at the...
Unless, of course, you hit the wrong button. So here we go. Here's Rob and Jason from a postgame.
To be able to change shape 3 different times, I think, to be able to overcome that. What was the vibe with the guys coming off the field? Was it disappointment? Was it exhaustion? Or was it, hey, we've got a spark going back?
I think it was both. I think disappointment, exhaustion, because they felt like they were in it, and I hear Brad's messaging into them, like, they got to come back to Atlanta. They got to come to Atlanta, like, pick your heads up. There's another game. So right away, he's showing his leadership qualities about picking everybody up. And that was my message to them, is that on the whole, like, with everything we faced, They've been so resilient, and so the game was a little bit chaotic in the way everything went, but these guys just keep showing up in those moments, and I'm really proud of that. That's what I can say.
It's one of those games where, because of the situations, you had to try things honestly and figure things out on the fly. Did it maybe open up some possibilities for you in the game back in Atlanta that you kind of learned tonight?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they can be unpredictable at times with the quality players they have on the pitch. And then I think like guys that stepped into the field, Noah Cobb, for instance, Luis Abram did a great job. I mean, when they come in, they did a great job of doing the best they could. So there's things we need to look at and reflect. The biggest thing is we have to recover. Like we'll fly back tonight, get back at whatever time to our houses, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then sleep until they can come back to training in a couple of days. So that would be my preference for what they go and do now.
So that's Rob and Jason after the match. And that sets us up for the rest of the week when it comes to season 3 when it comes to the TV series known as your MLS Cup playoffs. And so you end up with that as your result once again coming up in on the weekend. We still have to get through a lot of other matchups. We'll get through all the other matches of the weekend coming up here in a bit. But here's your numbers courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. We mentioned Brad. Brad had an 8.5 courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. So here's Brad's numbers on the night. Obviously played the full 90. 9 saves for Brad. Goals prevented, 1.07. 1 punch, 1 run out. 6 saves from inside the 18. 43 touches, 18 of 24 passing at 75%. 6 for 12 on his long balls. 4 clearances on the day. 1 tackle, 1 ground duel, 1. And those are your numbers on Brad. But 9 saves for Brad on the night. Starting 11 was Brad Pedro Amador, who continues to impress. And with the relationship that he seems to have with Saba, they are really combining into some fun stuff. Derek Williams, Stian Gregerson, Brooks Lennon. Then it was Bart Sleesh, Dax McCarty, Alexei Miranchuk. Then it was Jay Fortune, Jamal, and Saba. Saba with the goal finished at a 7.5 on the day, playing the full 90. 1 goal, XG plus XA was a 0.40. 39 touches, 17 of 22 passing at 77%. 3 key passes, 2 for 6 on his crosses. 2 shots on target, and one time called offside, 2 picks, and 1 dribble passed for Saba, who punched a 7.5. Miranchuk punched a 7.1. Jay Fortune a 6.6. Dax almost had a 7 on the day. Bart Sleesh had under a 6. Brooks Lennon, before he was subbed out, had a 6.5. Stiana 6.7. Derek, with a yellow card, had a 7 on the day. 7 clearances, 1 block, 5 interceptions, 3 total tackles, 3 for 5 on his ground duels. And he was 56 touches, 30 of 37 passing at 81%, 5 of 12 on long balls on the day for Derek Williams to get a 7.0. And Pedro Amador, since we've been mentioning Pedro, played the full 90 minutes, XG plus XA. The X equation is a 0.28, had the assist on the goal from Saba. 3 clearances, 1 pick, 2 tackles. 4 for 8 on his duels, 3 of 5 in the air, 1-1 on the ground. 3 for 5 on the ground, 1-1 in the air. Fouled once, 48 touches, 24 of 29 passing at 83%. 1 for 2 on his long balls, had 1 big chance created, the goal. Shot off target once and had a shot blocked as well. So that was the starting lineup before injuries and substitutions. Luis Abram came in, had a 7.4 in basically 70 minutes. So did Noah Cobb. Noah came in the 34th minute for Stian Gregerson, had a 7.0 on the day. 56 minutes, 6 clearances, 2 blocks, 2 picks, and a tackle. Won his only ground duel. 47 touches, 79% passing at 23 of 29, 2 for 4 on his long balls on the day. So Noah Cobb came in, had a 7.0. Luis Abram had 5 clearances, a block, a pick, 3 tackles, 1 clearance off the line, won all of his ground duels, and won 1 of 2 in the air. So 4 of So 3 for 3, 1 of 2, 4 for 5 in duels for Luis Abram over 70 minutes for him. And it was 83% passing, 29 of 35 on 48 touches for Luis Abram, had one long ball there as well. So other subs, Shande came in at the break for Miranchuk. Tristan Muyumba came in at the break for Jay Fortune. Daniel Rios came in, gave you 10 plus for Dax McCarty when Rob tried to get an equalizer and chase it for the final 11 minutes at a 6.3. So that is that's your numbers, a courtesy of our friends at SofaScore. And I know that I think Pars was asking about Ian Frey. The word on Frey, and it was, let's see, from Inter Miami, their own selves. Right medial meniscus, undergoing surgery, days ahead. Frey's a return to play timetable determined as he recovers in subsequent weeks. Then it was, I want to say it was expected back early 2025. It was so Franco Panizzo, and it was our friend Jillian Sakovitz. So Bogert, Tom Bogert from GMS and Gimme Sport, meniscus injury, undergoing surgery soon. The silver lining from Bogert, Ian Frey expected to be back early in 2025, according to a source. His ACL is fine. That was the one I was looking for. So the ACL is fine for Tom Bogert. He tore his ACL 3 seasons in a row. So that would have been 3 ACL injuries already at the age of 22, and he came back this year, and obviously the concern was there, but it is a medial meniscus injury, and he should be back by the time somewhere in the 2025 season. So that was really good news to hear. But there was an issue that was brought up with the injury with Frey, and so Frey wanted to exit on the far side per the rule as opposed to the near side. And so there was a whole lot of stuff involved in that injury. But Inter Miami medical staff and players protested the decision with Chapman. Alan Chapman wanted Ian Frey to exit on the far side away from the benches per the rule instead of the near side where the medical staff and the medical staff and the team was. And so Alan Chapman taking the rule literally in an injury case. We'll talk to Bart about this coming up once again in about 15 minutes. So that's your rundown of the Ian Frey injury, that it is a meniscus injury and it is not his ACL again. So Harry Austin, good morning from San Antonio. Is Hal next to go at Newcastle? I'm going to leave that for Alex Pacine. I'm going to leave that for Alex Pacine to discuss. I think he's Alex, start the discussion. I would imagine that the faith is there, considering that they have invested what they've invested. I mean, if you look at the table, let's just look at the table. It might be Julian Lopetegui who's next, but I think the West Ham result kind of saved him a little bit. Might be Russell Martin at Southampton. Might be Gary O'Neill at Wolves. I don't think it's going to be Kieran McKenna at Ipswich, because he brought them up, and this is what he has been given, and he knows how to navigate the financial situation at Ipswich. So if it's going to be anybody, it's probably going to be Russell Martin at Southampton, who only have 1 point in their first 9 matches. They've only scored 6 goals. Or Gary O'Neill with the level of frustration there. The Wolves said they have faith in O'Neill, and I think the problem that Wolves has, if you want to look at it this way, Wolves isn't going to invest. Gary O'Neill wanted them to invest in the last transfer window. They didn't. Gary O'Neill's like, okay, I'll work with what I got. So I don't know how many managers would take it. Let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that Gary O'Neill would, in fact, get sacked by Wolves. They continue down this road. Next up for them is Crystal Palace. They continue down this road. Then who would take the gig? That'd be my larger question. So I think Wolves is going to stick with Gary O'Neill. I think it might be Russell Martin at Southampton. And so might be Glasner at Crystal Palace, who've only won once in 9. Everton, Sean Dyche, I think they're going to be patient considering that they haven't lost in their last 5 after starting out losing their first 4. Why does this always happen? Why does this always happen? Ropes, Airborne DJ, anybody else? Let me know. Why does Everton always come out of the blocks slowly, then have to sit there and claw back every single season? Why? Why? But they've been unbeaten in their last 5. So they're north of the relegation zone by a solid 5 points. Leicester, I don't think that they're going to send Steve Cooper packing. Manchester United, we've seen it. Lopetegui's win put them ahead of Manchester United, so I think Lopetegui is safe. Then there's Eddie Howe and Andoni Iraola. But look at this grouping though. From 8 to 14, you're separated by 2 points. Spurs has Ange. Brentford has Thomas Frank. Fulham, they're not changing. Bournemouth has Iraola. Newcastle, Eddie Howe. West Ham, Lopetegui. Manchester United fires Ten Hag this morning. Sorry, he left. Steve Cooper's not going to leave Leicester, or Leicester's not going to let Steve Cooper go. Everton, Sean Dyche, if things go sideways, maybe festive fixtures. So I think Russell Martin, Southampton, Glasner, Crystal Palace. I think those are your next 2. Because seriously, if Newcastle wins, you're a point out of 7th. And then you're in that next group where you win. I mean, look, if you win 2 in a row, you're pushing your way out of that group from 8 to 14, and you're moving your way up the table. It's still early. But in the what have you done for me now situation, that's what you're staring at. What good have you done me like yesterday? Apparently not much. Alex is hands off. Hands off, Eddie. Hands off. Too many draws, but Alex says that they need some turnover on the squad. I know that everybody's chasing after Alexander Isak, but Isak wants to stay. Newcastle doesn't want to let him go, so we'll see what happens. Of course, according to the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, everybody has a price. PSR killed Newcastle this season. But no, to your point, Harry, I think it's going to be either Russell Martin at Southampton or Glasner at Crystal Palace. And I think we walked through the ideas as to the why. So that was the interesting thing this morning. You know, we're not one to sit here and ignore breaking news, especially when news breaks, we fix it, or at least we attempt to anyway. Since Bart's going to be here in about 10 minutes, let me go through some of the other news of the morning, and we'll get into the other MLS-ian things, and we'll get into the other results on the flip side from Bart. We got to reset the clock on stupidity down here. Traditionally, that would be part of opening kickoff as well. The Spanish government, La Liga, and Real Madrid reacted strongly Sunday after racist insults were allegedly directed at Barcelona players during Saturday's match at the Bernabeu. Spanish media reported that Barcelona forward Lamine Yamal, who is of Equatorial Guinean and Moroccan heritage, was targeted with xenophobic and racist abuse. Barcelona beat arch rivals Real 4-0 with Lamine Yamal among the scorers. The Spanish Supreme Sports Council, otherwise known as the CSD, released a statement condemning racist incidents during the Clásico and are going to meet today to discuss the case. State Commission Against Violence, Racism, Xenophobia, and Intolerance in Sports, which is in charge of studying the case, includes the CSD, the Spanish Police, the Civil Guard, the Spanish Football Federation, La Liga, and the State Attorney General's Office. And La Liga came out with a statement. Let me get my official voice here. Quote, La Liga will immediately report the racist insults and gestures received by Barcelona players to the hate crime section of the National Police Information Brigade, as well as informing the coordinating prosecutor of the Hate Crimes and Discrimination Unit of the State Attorney General's Office. La Liga vehemently condemns the incidents at the Santiago Bernabeu and remains firm in its commitment to eradicate any kind of racist behavior and hatred inside and outside stadia. I said stadia, they said stadiums, end quote. Real Madrid said they'd opened an investigation to identify the perpetrators so that appropriate action can be taken. I'm just going to keep reading. Quote, Real Madrid strongly condemns any kind of behavior involving racism, xenophobia, or violence in football and sport. Deeply regrets the insults that a few fans uttered last night in one of the corners of the stadium. And then you had teammates come out and say things backing their friends and their teammates. Regrettable what happened yesterday at the Bernabeu. All my support to Lamine, Ansu, and Rafinha. I know that Madrid and the police will do things to identify and punish the guilty. Barcelona did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. Minister for Migration and Inclusion, Elma Saiz, also condemned the incident. She got in her statement. RFEF and La Liga have taken steps to tackle an increase in racist abuse with measures including partial stadium closures. Let me come up with my response here. How's that working for you? RFEF also condemned the incident at the Bernabeu and said on Sunday it was enforcing a zero-tolerance policy on racist abuse and violence in stadiums, calling it a social scourge. RFEF came out with a statement. 4 people were arrested and questioned in Spain on Thursday on suspicion of conducting an online hate campaign encouraging fans to racially abuse Vinicius Jr. in the build-up to their match against ATLUTD last month. In June, we talked about the Valencia case. In England, Bristol Rovers said they were infuriated by racist abuse directed at forward Shaq Ford after the League One match against Reading. Ford was targeted on Instagram after being sent off in the second half of his team's loss at the Select Car Leasing Stadium. According to Rovers, the message, which was highlighted by the 20-year-old Ford and some of his teammates, contained abusive and racist language. The club, who intend to assist the police investigation, said they're sick and tired of racist behavior blighting sport. Shaq is not the only Bristol Rovers player to receive racial abuse, with an incident under investigation only last week from the club. Even more sickening is that some of these messages come from individuals claiming to be Bristol Rovers supporters each time the club has sought to act in the appropriate manner, end quote. So as we reset the clock back to 0 days without stupidity down here, I'm going to just once again, I'm going to continue to sit here and hit my trumpet as loud as humanly possible. All these statements that we hear from clubs, I know you have to do something. I get it. I know you have to. But a little bit more bite in the statement would be nice instead of just the standard boilerplate material. I mean, who was it last week? It was Luton. I want more responses like we saw from Luton Town last week, where Luton Town basically said, you know what? You want to run, person on social media, you want to run your mouth like that? Say it to his face. That's what we have here with all of the IG 280 character, whatever social media, TikTokian warlords and warriors we have. All these folks are keyboard warriors that hide behind said keyboard. And they think that they're real tough by acting like a 12-year-old. And 99% of 12-year-olds have more intelligence than a lot of these folks when it comes to using social media. But sadly, we have to continue to talk about this. Sadly, we have to continue to talk about it. And sadly, we have to continue to talk about it. And we will. Yeah, and David says it's all just the Mr. Hand speech from South Park. Yeah, Mr. Harrison, yeah. And Mr. Drugs are bad. Okay. Do something about it. I love what Luton did. Luton's like, tell you what, you want to say that? Come on here and say it to his face. When you say it to his face here at the park, here at Kenilworth Road, we're all going to be standing right behind him. We're backing our guy. You're running your mouth. You want to run your mouth? Come on over. That's what I like. I mean, we fixed it in La Liga anyway. And actually, Luton might have been listening to our show. Because we were like, nah, you got to say it. You got to say it to dude's face. And it can't be in front of, you can't apologize in front of your stadium. You got to come to his place. You gotta go to the Bernabeu. You got to go to Bristol Rovers. You got to go to Kenilworth Road. If you're going to run your mouth like this, you have to go as a part. If they find out who you are, you got to go to their place, much like Luton is suggesting and much like we have. You got to stand there and you've either got to back up what you said or you apologize. But you have to be the one. You've got to pay your own dime. You got to show up and you've got to apologize. Or if you think you have the testicular fortitude to actually say what you put on social media, you want to back that stuff up, then you're probably going to have a lot of bobbies and the gendarme turn their backs. It's like, oh, okay, hi. You want to do that? That's cool. You want to run that game? That's on you. But no. I like the Luton approach, and I wish, frankly, more teams would take the Luton approach. You want to run your mouth? You come here and do it. I'm going to figure out. I thought I had a Luton jersey. I need to wear it more often. Pars, I wish. Pars has a question. We probably have too high a number. We probably would break the board. Pars is asking, is stupidity down here something you track on the LED board behind you? I don't think if we tracked it down, we probably would end up being more frustrated than anything else. But I think the biggest thing, it's like the when you go walking by the old construction sites, days since. Well, sadly, it's easy that we end up doing it as we reset to go back to zero. It's kind of like in my head, like you walk by the old construction sites or you go driving by construction sites on the road and it says, numbers since our last accident during construction on this site. And then they'll flip a number, one of those kind of things. That's where this idea started. But because of the numbers don't get too high, sadly. The numbers end up getting reset to zero a lot. And like I said, I'm a fan of the Luton approach. But I guess stupidity down here is like the offensive lineman of SDH. We don't talk about it until something happens. You don't talk about offensive linemen until they have a penalty. You don't talk about offensive linemen until they make a great block or they, have a key offside or something like that. Or maybe get a fat guy touchdown. Stupidity down here, the successful days is an offensive lineman doing its work. Sadly, when it resets, when we have to talk about it and we need to talk about it, to talk about administration, to talk about security, to talk about, focusing the sunlight on all of these morons, then that's when we end up talking about it more. Because the clock gets reset, the board gets reset to zero, and we start it up all over again. But yeah, literally, to your point, Pars, we don't talk about it until something bad happens, and then we have to reset the board to zero. Because I wish there was somebody that independently could keep a number. It's like, okay, 28 days since our last stupidity down here. Unfortunately, I don't think we've ever gotten that high. It might get to like 6 or 7. Maybe we get through a week. And then we have to reset the clock to zero because somebody's an idiot. Whether it is an individual, whether it is a supporters group, whether it is a club or a league or a governing body that is missing the point and missing the principle of, trying to make this sport as inclusive as possible. I know what I'm going to do before we get to Bart. I know what we're going to do, and this is going to earn me the explicit rating. And I don't care because it's a Monday, and this is how we go.
Look, I get that some people think if they buy a ticket, they've got the right to yell whatever abusive shit they want at footballers. But they're not just footballers. They're also people. And none of us know what is going on in each other's lives.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the end of hour number 1, courtesy of our friends at Apple TV. And Bart, we always go to our man Roy Kent when we need some bringing everything back to center when it comes to stupidity down here.
What was the stupidity down here moment?
Oh, the stupidity down here moment was racist stupidity from El Clasico.
Oh, no, racism in Spain. Not shocked.
Yeah. Yes. No, not shocked. How caffeine infused are you, sir?
Not enough because I'm still very tired. Got home at like 1 o'clock last night. So.
All right. So break down this weekend of yours and why you are heavily fueled into your caffeine here.
So Saturday I refereed 4 games, which is a little bit more than I normally do.
Yeah.
And then had a Halloween party Saturday. Woke up early on Sunday morning to drive to Nashville to watch the U.S. women's national team. Drummed all 90 minutes, got in a car, drove back to Atlanta. Well, I rode, I didn't drive, thankfully, but came back to Atlanta after the game. And obviously that time change is, it's not immense, but it definitely is a little different when you go from Central to Eastern. And yes, Abby, I'm back.
Yes, it is. And this is what I try to tell folks when the boss and I go and visit her family over in God's time zone. Just ask her. And we're right there. We're probably maybe a half hour on the other side of the Alabama-Georgia border. You feel it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just drift over that time zone line. You feel it. You're still thinking that you're on Eastern time, and you get the wall smashed right in front of you.
Yeah. I don't change my watch when I go because it's not worth it. But it also is a reminder that like, oh wait, my body is like thinking it's later than it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. So I do have some things that I did want to discuss with you this morning in your increasingly caffeinated, fueled up individual. Let's start with what happened in Nashville, and we'll go through the numbers and we'll go through the rage that traditionally is attached to it by our friends at Soccer America. But it was a chance for you to drum for a full 90 minutes. First off, let me ask, how packed was Giotis, by the way, as he thinks about it?
It was more than half full.
Okay.
The official attendance was 17,000, which, as you know, John, that is a 30,000 seat stadium.
Yes.
It was not full, Abby. I think the lower bowl was pretty filled in. The upper level was not. But, again, this is the criticism of U.S. soccer, where they like to play at venues they feel comfortable in. But the problem there is you're tapping into a market one too many times. And the novelty and specialty of a national team coming to town. I mean, I think I know the men have played in Austin 5 times, since it opened. Giotis, I think, has hosted the women 4 times on top of a men's game. Austin has hosted 2 games for either team this month. So, look, glad they're playing in Louisville on Wednesday. That will probably be, I think it's going to be a full house. Last I saw, they sell like 700 tickets.
Right.
But tickets to the game, John, started at $40 normal price. Now they did a promotion for like a week for the Kelly O'Hara special, which was $16 tickets in the upper 200 levels.
Okay.
Clearly the 200s just should have been $16 tickets for any seat in the 200s because they just weren't full. And when you're charging people $40 for a friendly against Iceland,
yes,
who's not a bad team by any stretch. It's not a name that resonates with people. You're going to struggle to fill the house. I mean, I think U.S. soccer is learning this fall that they are vastly overpricing I hope they're learning.
I was going to say, are they?
I hope they're learning they're vastly overpricing their product. I will say the tickets to the Nations League game in St. Louis in November, I think they started at $40, which I think is a fair price for an actual competitive match.
Okay.
But we'll see how full St. Louis is.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of full, according to Doug Robertson of the AJC, Mercedes-Benz opened to full capacity for the playoff match against Messi and Friends. That is enough.
I'm sure that is going to be full of Atlanta United fans.
Yeah. So let me circle back. So you're saying that, no offense to the goal scorer, but Carolina Vichamsdatir did not fill Giotis?
No, I don't think she scored. I think that should be credited to a Casey Murphy own goal because she dropped the ball literally and caused that goal to happen. So
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
right. Yeah. So USA ends up winning 3-1. Vichamsdatir scores in the 31st to make it 1-0. And I'm wondering, and I might have had this conversation with myself, and I said, Self, what is Emma Hayes having a discussion about with her club right now, being down 1-0 at the break on a Casey Murphy OG credited to Carolina Vichamsdatir?
Well, when you looked at the starting lineup, I think it was fair that you could tell that this was not Emma trying to play her best 11. But at the same time, I think if Emma were to take a concern from the first half, it was we were settling for easy passes, or we weren't trying to find better passes. We were trying to settle for just get the ball off my foot and try to put it into the box instead of trying to create opportunities. There were still chances created that way, as you're likely going to create a lot of chances when the likes of Mal Swanson are on the field. But I think it was just a little, I don't want to say lazy, but it was just a little too unsophisticated would probably be the word that she would be concerned with, is it just wasn't trying to take the next step in what that progression should be. And so there are a lot of clipped balls, floated balls to attackers into the penalty area, which John, I don't know if you noticed, but probably not the best idea against Iceland to put a ball in the box. Their goalkeeper is taller than Casey Murphy.
Wow.
And they had a lot of great, tall defenders. That's just not a winning recipe. But at the same time, you have to say, well, we're trying out, all these different players, girls who are getting their first caps, girls who are not fully, integrated into the national team right now. And that in itself is a positive. But you saw at halftime, she made changes with 3 goals. So, I think that says a lot about her mindset of she wants to win these games, but she also understands the value of getting new players, fresh blood into the lineup. I mean, Emily Sams, who up until now had more gold medals than she did caps for the U.S. national team, gets her first cap in a start, right? She's never played for the team before, but she starts alongside Emily Sonnet in the back line. I thought she was very good, but that's just an example of, there were some new faces in that starting 11, and you could tell that some of them hadn't quite understood what it means to play at the international level, which you don't get until you literally play at the international level.
So the whole playing at the international level helps with the experience they would get playing at the international level.
Yeah, you got to have 10 years experience before you get 10 years experience type thing. But yeah, no, it is the case. You can play really well at NWSL level, you can play really well with your club team, get that call in and earn that call up, right? But even in training, and the U.S. national team, they are very intense. They keep a high standard.
Yeah.
But once you go out on that field where there's another collection of really darn good international caliber players trying to prevent you from doing all the things you want to do, like Iceland did very well, that's where that quality has to click on. And you go, okay, well, how do I make my better decisions? How do I find better passes? And how do I help my team, get in better positions to score? And I think that was the struggle the first half. You brought on some old blood, if you will. Sorry, sorry, Lynn Williams. But you brought on some old heads, who kind of have that composure, that experience, that quality for an international level. Mixed it with some of the younger players, Emma Sears being one of them, Alyssa Thompson being another, who glad to see her back producing for the national team.
Yeah.
And that helped score 3 goals. That's what it is. It also is just a case of the U.S. still being, a physically dominant team, even against a team that's pretty physically dominant themselves.
So you end up with 2 goals with the old blood coming in, 2 goals in 4 minutes. Lynn Williams, Lindsey Horan, 72 and 76. And you end up with Emma Sears getting that goal at 90 plus 3. And by the time you're done, I mean, and I think that we have to look at this to Abby's point and to your point here. We can look at numbers all day long, specifically stats. We'll go through who played, what the numbers are. But at the end of the day, Emma Hayes is looking for other things. And yeah, you might have been dominant across the board, but it's a dominant because shots were 17-4, shots on target 5-3. 3 of those end up in the back of the net. 2 saves each side, 6 corners to 1, 22 fouls, 13 of them to Iceland. 5 times you were offside, and you had possession 2/3 of the time. That to me is no real surprise, considering that Iceland likes to go to the Laredo garage and hang out with MARTA buses most of the time when they want to do things.
Oh, they're good at it.
Minute, absolutely. So, I mean, that's where we are here. And Jarrett's dropping by as we're discussing women's national team and stuff. What's up, Jarrett?
Oh, not much. Yeah.
Happy Monday.
Hey, and look, man, women's national. I clicked over at like halftime. I was like, oh, that's not the scoreline I expected. And then I clicked over at the 90th minute and went, that's the scoreline I expected.
Yeah. It felt a little Nick Saban's Alabama, where the team is like, we got this. We're hanging in. Well, this is good. And then you look at the end of the game, you go, why do I have a black eye? You know?
Also, how did they run the ball for 600 yards?
Right.
This is soccer. They're not allowed to run the ball like that.
And it felt that way. It felt that way, Jarrett.
Run the damn ball, Bobo. Exactly.
Look, I plant the flag for Jenna Niswanger at all moments. She is an absolute joy to watch. So
absolutely. But they were good performances, individually. Yes. I'll shout out. I thought Emily Sams was very good in her first ever appearance for the national team. And playing with Sonnet, who, I think is a very experienced player, but probably not really a factor for the 2027 cycle. But let me rephrase, maybe shouldn't be a factor. We need to figure out if we can find other center backs better than Sonnet, because she's on the other side of 30, unfortunately for her. And so Sam's putting out a great kind of film clip, of, hey, I can be Gurma's partner. Tierna Davidson, unfortunately, has the Rose Lavelle case of made of glass and can't rely on her to stay healthy. So if you can get an Emily Sams, not Emma Sears, that's been confusing me all week. If you can get Emily Sams, who has, by the way, playing on the best team in NWSL, the best defense in NWSL, if you can get her integrated into this team through this fall, right? That is a positive going forward to the actual next, as we turn the page to the next cycle.
So, because I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's something that I felt like we haven't. I know we've talked about it on here, but like as a gelatinous collective, as fans in this country, like so often we enjoy these players, and I feel like we often don't think enough about, okay, but what's coming next? Because so and so is post 30 years old. And not trying to push them out the door, but I need to have somebody else there, because Father Time is still undefeated, and I want to make sure that so and so is doing great. Okay, great. They're 31 years old.
Correct.
We need to start getting minutes to younger players, so we do not end up in another situation where we roll into a World Cup saying, if everyone stays healthy, this could be a fun time.
Yeah. Well, and I thought we saw that, Jarrett, with Emma Sears. on the attacking end, who kind of looks like a younger Lynn Williams, fast, strong, great at getting the ball to the end line or getting her cross in. Probably needs to work on actually a little bit more of the finesse of the game, but she gets the goal and the assist. That's good for her. Lynn Williams also with the goal and an assist, and I think that, to your point, is like Lynn is great, but she's on the wrong side of 30 as well. And the reality is, you do have to find, if not replacements, the backups. And that's kind of the fact-finding mission, I think, for this window, is how do we fill in some of the backup roles on this team, specifically on the wing. I'll again shout out Alyssa Thompson. If you have Alyssa Thompson backing up Mal Pugh on the left, or excuse me, Mal Swanson on the left wing. That's pretty darn good, right? If you can find Emma Sears as your backup now to Trinity Rodman on the right side, that's pretty darn good. So that has been the positive of this particular window so far. The results are whatever.
Yes, the results are whatever. So our Soccer America Sky is Falling weekly friendly numbers. Casey Kruger, Emily Sonnet got 6s. Emily Sams gets an 8 in her debut. Jenna Eiswanger gets a 5. Midfield.
That's probably because she only played 45 minutes. I'll just say that.
The midfield got 4s. Sam Coffey, Corbin Albert, Olivia Moultrie.
That was a tough midfield, mainly because, Moultrie's, is she 19 yet? Yeah, she's 19. She turned 19 2 days before I had a birthday.
Wow.
So Coffey, Albert, fine. Moultrie added into that doesn't give you what you need as a dynamic midfield just because she isn't there yet. But again, she's 19. She's playing professionally. I think this is her 8th season playing professionally. It feels like. I'm joking, but she was the one at 15 who was like, "Hey, I want to play professionally,"
Yeah. Carolina Ascent had a 14-year-old play.
Right. Yeah, that was actually cool to see. So that's more of a she had a rough game, but I'm not a huge fan of his. But how many rough games have we seen from Jay Fortune? And he's finally becoming someone who is at least not terrible. And that's kind of what you want to see from Moultrie is how do we get her to get continually better every time she steps out of the field. This was not a great game from her, but I understand why. I mean, look, you've got Iceland as a competent team, very competent. They're good. They have some very good individuals. That midfield was tough, and she didn't have a personally great game. Hopefully she learned. Hopefully Emma can take that film and say, hey, this is where we need you to get better. Jarrett, you want to talk about Jay Fortune? I know.
No, it's not that. It's that I love this conversation, not for Jay Fortune, because we had this conversation about George Campbell when he was here, because George Campbell was just so 9s and 1s, man. He would have those games where people were like, this guy's going to be starting for this team next year. And then he would have games where my mentions would get lit up. Like, why is this person playing this sport professionally? He's doing fine in Montreal. He's a good kid. He's fine.
And luckily he's getting some extra rest this offseason.
He is. You know what? Brad made sure. Look, Brad's a good leader. Brad went and made sure that boy got some good rest. Like he said, you know what, kid? You got a long future ahead. I'm going to make sure you get some extra rest. Yep. Get some time to review some film. I got you covered. Don't worry about it. That's just a good leader, Brad Guzan.
Got your back, bruh.
But every time we talk about this like this, I always think back to the concept of pitching to cross our metaphors in baseball, where I forget who. I think it was one of the Braves' 3 aces mentioned that you only have your ace stuff only so often. What makes you really good is when you can make it work when it's not your day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you mentioned that about Moultrie, because it wasn't a great game for her, but it's so important for these young players, I think, to learn. When you don't have it, when you're not on your game, you got to make it work. And if that means you're occupying space, bringing people who are on their day into the game and trying to make everyone around you better, then that's what you got to do. And you just got to make it work. And it's something that I don't know if we talk about enough on a broad spectrum.
Yeah. Again, I thought the midfield was rough the first half. You made changes. You had a much better midfield performance in the second half, and you scored 3 goals. Weird how that works.
Strange how that plays. Forwards up top, Mal Swanson got a 6. Jaden Shaw got a 4. Yasmin Ryan, her second cap, got a 6 as well.
Yeah, Shaw, not a great game from her. I do think that Swanson and Shaw, I don't know if they were deployed in the best way. They seem to be switching a lot. Mainly, I don't know if that's Emma or Mal being Mal, but I think maybe for Jaden, she still needs to figure out what her best. I mean, she's also young. Forget that she's 20, and she's still figuring out her best, not just position, but her best moves and centers of gravity, and what is her best spot to make something happen on the field. And so when you're trying to figure that out, at a different place than you are at your club position. She did fine the first game, second game, maybe not as great. But I think Jaden's one that you have to look at and go, okay, she's going to fit into this team somewhere. The problem is she going to be well, she can play attacking mid. Well, she can play left wing. Well, she can play striker. Well, she can play right wing. And then you go, but how do we get her in her best position? And I think Emma's trying to struggle to figure that out because, John, there's a lot of other good players on this team. And she may not be better than the starters, when fully healthy, but she's like slightly behind them in all of them. So it's just a matter of how do we get her in her best position. And sometimes it's just not going to happen.
Goal scorers each got 8s, according to our friends at Soccer America. Alyssa Thompson ends up with a 6. Emily Fox got a 5. Sophia Smith got a 5. Sams becomes the first player to start on her WNT debut in 2 years. Sam Coffey against Nigeria was the last in September of 2022. First player to record a goal and an assist in her debut since who?
Kristen Press.
There you go. 2 goals and an assist. February 9th, 2013 against Scotland.
By the way, John, I have to say,
yes,
Alyssa Thompson has been going to the Kristen Press school of playing left wing because what she's doing is like, oh, that's Kristen Press, but shorter. She's a tiny little one. But like you watch her play, you're like, oh, she like the goal she scored in the first game. It was like, oh, that's a Kristen Press goal. And that's like that. I don't think Kristen Press has, I'm glad she's back playing for her personal health and mental health, but I don't know how much longer she has to play. But if she can just be the, who's the dude whose specialty is literally just defensive ends? I can't remember his name. The NFL, like in college, he's not a coach. He just brings people in for his own like training camps in the summer.
No, Chuck Smith played for the
yes,
Falcons and did that.
Yeah. Like if Kristen Press can just be the like, hey, I'm taking all the left wingers and we're going to learn how to do all these 5 things that make you a dynamic and goal scoring left winger.
Kristen Press, Chuck Smith summer camp.
Yeah, that actually.
Yeah. I will always wonder what might have been with Kristen Press, because if it had been a different era and she had stayed healthy. And you had not had the absolutely fantastic
Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan. Yeah. I mean,
the tail end of Abby Wambach's run.
Yep.
Like, sprinkle in some Sydney LaRue magic in there. Like,
yep.
It's just
Tobin,
this,
all of
this
those. Yeah.
overcrowded attacking room. Like, I wonder what her legacy would have been if she could have stayed healthy and she had not picked that era to exist in. Because she's good. I feel like she's going to be underrated.
Yes. So coming up, it's going to be Lynn family sold out. That's going to be a great environment, I think.
I'm super excited for them.
U.S. and Argentina Wednesday to complete the friendlies. What are you up to batting leadoff Friday morning?
I mean, I guess I'll be here at 9:05.
Well, there you go. Well,
maybe 9:10.
Yeah, okay. Because well, and it'll be just to put a bow on the whole thing. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is you have 3 friendlies this window, which we haven't had really before outside of the She Believes Cup. So 3 actual friendlies means you get 3 opportunities to kind of test and measure and judge, player performances, overall team performances. And again, I just want to say Iceland is good. Like that's the thing that like the U.S. is going to have to deal with. They've dealt with it a little bit, but going forward is a lot of the European teams are just baseline competent at soccer now. That's weird what happens when you actually allow women to play soccer and give them adequate funding.
What?
I know. And that's just going to be something that they're going to deal with when playing European competition going forward, because unfortunately with CONCACAF, while there is some improvement on that front, a lot of the CONCACAF nations just aren't at that level. But I mean, you've got, especially with Iceland, you've got several players who are on Champions League squads, playing for very good teams in Europe, and 2-3-1 wins is pretty good against Iceland, and again, yes, it's after a bunch of subs, but subs count too. And it's not just the subs; it's the ability to continue to wear down a team. So, what would this look like if you had your preferred starting 11 and everyone's healthy? I don't know. But the fact that you're able to bring on, like in the first game, you bring on Shaw, and she scores. But you also started Alyssa Thompson, and she scores. And in this game, you go, okay, well, the first half wasn't great, but that was because you were experimenting. Ryan, Moultrie, like even to an extent, Shaw playing on the right, like those are experimental.
You're kicking the tires on stuff.
You're taking some chances here to see. That's what you're doing, right? You're fact finding. Okay, it didn't work as well as we wanted it to. Make a few changes, and those changes are bringing on Lindsey Horan, who still very good, despite what people want to say, and bringing on Lynn Williams, who
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my, Lucy Bronze shouted her out for Ballon d'Or chance, and everyone blew a gasket. Now, I personally think if you're picking a U.S. women's national team, it should be Swanson or Smith. That's just me, but you can't deny Lindsey Horan and her quality when you watch her play for Lyon. Anyway, the point is the depth on this team is getting better, and that's kind of what Emma Hayes is trying to do. I think we had 12 to 13 really good players that we can rely on to perform when they're healthy. How do we fill in the rest of the roster, right? If you're going to get a 23-player roster, how does that fill out? You even got a new goalkeeper. We didn't talk about that because she didn't play. It doesn't really matter. But, the girl from Utah comes in because Jane Campbell, Marietta's, has to go home.
Right.
That's the benefit of this camp, is getting all these new players in. And you just increase the pool, something we haven't seen a lot of from the U.S. national team. Vlatko tried it, but he didn't really use them. Right, that's been the problem. Is he brought these new players into camp, didn't really use them. Savannah Mello is a perfect example of that. But now, what does Emma go? I'm very curious what her strategy is for Wednesday. She basically said, with NWSL finishing out their regular season on Friday through Sunday of this week, she's not going to play those players who have the Friday night games. So that does limit your selection.
I was going to say now.
But, here's the other thing. The terrible schedule making by the French schedule makers, but we have PSG and Lyon players, and you can kind of say whatever, they're fine. Because most of the time, PSG and Lyon aren't playing great competition.
I do also blame the French for many of my problems.
Well, fair enough. But Lyon and PSG play each other Sunday coming off the international break. That is bad schedule making. Because it's great to get the excitement, but you just had Lyon and PSG have a number of international players. Their entire starting 11s are international players. And whether they were playing Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they're coming off the international break. That is not smart from those schedule makers. I'll just say that.
I give the schedule makers a harumph.
Yeah, we don't love that.
I didn't get a harumph out of you.
But anyway, I'm curious how she's going to play this. And again, Argentina's a couple steps down from Iceland, as we have seen recently. So that'll also kind of play into personally, I want Emily Sams to start again. And I think if you see her and Germa, because Germa won, San Diego Wave has been eliminated from playoff contention. Thanks, Landon Donovan.
Well, at least they don't have to play on that surface anymore.
It's really just thanks, Jill L. Oh, my good Lord, John. No, grass surface is always better than everything, John. Don't you know that?
Well, and then sand.
No, grass is just better.
Yes, and sand
there's no flaws with grass ever.
None, and sand is worse than grass, which is what the San Diego State got to play on this part.
Correct.
That wasn't ugly. It was fugly.
Well, that surface looked like the opening scene of City of God, if you've ever seen that.
That was just, man, that was awful.
Not great. But anyway, I think you're looking at possibly some very heavy lineup rotation on Wednesday just because of the schedule. But I do think we might see Sams and Germa start together. And I personally would love to see that because I think they might be a really fun center back pairing, both very strong, but still very competent on the ball.
SGs are getting their emails. It was posted out on social media about the upper tank being available. It is now official. So upper tank is officially available for Messi and friends when they come here on the weekend. Turning the page to reffing down here. I know that Jarrett had a couple of moments. I know that there was one in particular, Jared. I think that
I had a couple of them. Oh, okay, sorry.
You had in your brain, sir, for
Mm.
repping down here. You had a couple that probably could be here for a review.
Oh, well, okay. The one I complained about most was actually American football, and I'm not going to waste Bart's time on that.
No, but I thought that
but
the Orlando Charlotte moment.
Yeah, well, there's really just one for there. And Bart, I don't know if you saw the Pep Biel
Robin
quote unquote kick out.
Okay, here's my problem, Jarrett. I didn't see other than what's on Twitter, and what's on Twitter is not a great replay.
Yeah, because I saw it in the moment, and they played on. So like he gets tackled, he's kind of down and kind of rolling around, and that the defender's kind of like I think he's kind of stepping over him, but I can't. It's one of those where like judging intent gets tricky because I don't know if he's stepping over him like AI stepping over Ty Lue, or if he's stepping over him like if I don't make this step over him, I might step on him and I don't want to cause problems.
Right. I couldn't quite tell.
It's weird. And then Biel's leg goes out, but I know Jason and I talked about it, and his concern was, is Biel sticking his leg out there to keep the guy from falling on him or from stepping on him, or is it a
almost
kick?
Looked like his cleat got caught in the shoelace, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's another thing about it. It's
like
just
that.
I saw it in the moment. I thought it was a kick out in the moment because I saw his leg snap out.
Yes, 100%.
And we were messaging about it, and I'm like, oh, Biel was kicked out. And then they kept playing, and I think the AR saw it because the ref kind of looked to the AR, then pulls out the red. I was surprised they didn't go to the monitor. I know every call is checked by VAR. I was surprised they didn't go to the monitor because I wondered, it's like sometimes y'all can just go to the monitor just to reassure people. It's not going to hurt anything. That game was cooked.
Right.
I could have done with another couple looks, man.
I think I agree, and I think just to make sure that we said all the things are true, right? It looked bad. It may not have been bad. It looked like he did this, but it also looked like he did this. I think at the end of the day, when you see it maybe live action, that's the problem that if you watch it live, and I never saw a video replay of that. That's the other issue is I only got to see, because as you mentioned, it wasn't like video reviews. So we didn't get to see it other than the slow motion that you're seeing on Apple TV and that might be the problem with VAR there is because it's so far off the ball that they may not have great angles of it. And it's not clear cut, like someone throwing a punch type of thing, which is something that you probably get a better actual footage of. I mean, a punch is a punch is a punch. I think that's easier to tell than, a kick out where you're playing a sport with your feet. I don't have an issue necessarily with it being a red card because I think when you look at it, if what the communication was between the AR and the center referee, we don't know what that is. And it very well could have been the center said, oh yeah, he kicked him, he kicked out at him. And he may have seen the excessive force that it requires for that red card. And again, we don't have the luxury of just looking at that right now, which is a problem.
In Top End 90, the Charlotte account shared an alternate look at it. The Andrew Wiebe shared as well over at the mothership for MLS. And the more I looked at that one, the shoelace thing kind of maybe because it's funny you say that. I went back and looked at it, and as you're talking, I'm like, his foot's moving with his foot as if it's like a Groucho Marx mirror.
Yeah. I wish I'm with you, Jared. I wish they would have said, oh, hey, we're giving you a red card because we saw this, and then immediately start that video check. Is it clear and obvious? I don't know. And that's obviously the standard we have to have. But I think this is the time where, again, using the tool of video assistant referee, that extra eye to say, I think it's worth looking at, right? To let the referee on the field make the full decision.
The thing that got me was I felt like there wasn't much protest from Biel as he went off the field. And I kind of was like, why is there not more protest here?
Yep.
Just because, like, if you had gotten tangled up and you were trying to untangle yourself,
correct,
your protest would have been very demonstrative.
Correct.
Because this game is cooked. But now Charlotte's missing their number 10 for a return leg.
Yep.
Against a team that kind of like rolled them down the field for most of that game. Don't know how much of that game you saw, but like Charlotte had a couple of moments, but otherwise, like Orlando was.
I didn't get to watch, but what I was watching in the car, it was like, oh yeah, Orlando's kind of taking it to him.
Yeah, like Charlotte almost didn't seem up for getting punched around a bit.
You just hate to see it. I had this Jared. And people can chime off in the comments. I had this existential debate with myself and the others in the car coming home because obviously Atlanta United fans don't like Orlando.
Yeah,
but I'm kind of more annoyed with Charlotte fans thinking they're like,
when the owner for Charlotte, when the owner for Charlotte out of the blocks says Atlanta's our rival, and he starts running smack in his opening press conference about Atlanta, then I could understand that.
I'm just at this point where I'm like, okay, well, Orlando has their trophy. I don't want them to get any more, but I certainly don't want Charlotte thinking that they're better than they are because they're like, oh, we did better than Atlanta United this season. Okay, well, 1, we were shit this season. 2,
and we still went and beat Charlotte in their building.
Yeah, it's not like y'all had a fantastic season. Congratulations on finishing 6th.
Part of me wanted a Charlotte Atlanta playoff series because nobody can win a home game in this series to save their lives.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever y'all think in the comments, but I was just like, no.
You can grab a few at my church because I've been in the camp of Charlotte and Nashville annoy me much more than Orlando does.
Orlando feels like proper soccer fans to an extent. They need to they need to go to therapy collectively as a group because they like to fight too much.
Yeah.
But I don't care about ISC. I'm real sorry.
That's just less.
I don't care about ISC and how their fans are friendlier to us. Screw them. The rest of their fans are terrible, arrogant Charlotte freaks. I don't like them. I don't like the city of Charlotte.
He was careful. I could see another word formulating.
I don't like the city of Charlotte.
Go
put on your damn fleece vest and go crunch some numbers, finance, bro. Like, I don't need you to talk to me about soccer.
That's the thing about it is even I remember when they were coming in the league, you still had a lot of I think you will always have the Charlotte Atlanta rivalry as the smaller sister city, the little brother city.
It's Atlanta, New Orleans, but Charlotte is the youngest brother, and you're like, who the hell are you?
I'm still actively begging them to put an MLS team in New Orleans, and you will see what a rivalry looks like.
Woo. I mean, that's hate.
Mm-hmm.
That's some hate.
All the MLS mothership people up in New York, put a team in New Orleans. I'll show you what a rivalry is.
Well, rivalries don't exist outside of the Northeast, Jarrett, so that's the problem.
And the Cali Clasico. That's it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, that was and then also being in Nashville kind of fueled my hate of who the hell are you all trying to talk smack at us? Nashville fans love to pretend like they're like, oh, we have this great all these things. Look, both of y'all are just cities that have an IPA named after them. That's all you are.
Wow. I feel like Nashville's coming back down to earth a bit. I think this year kind of was a wake up call.
They learned that just playing defense and hoping that Hani Mukhtar is good isn't a way to
play defense and send Hani on a vert. Basically, that's it.
They also just hired a coach though who has a little Philadelphia in him, so Nashville might get some of that dark magic too, and which will only fuel this rivalry. So because BJ was in Philly at one point, and if he starts bringing some of that Jim Curtin shit house, everything's gonna kick off.
Mm-hmm. To Andy's question, wondering about Tom Bogert. Since we're discussing Charlotte, it appears that Phoenix Rising are going to name Charlotte assistant manager Pomadou Ka as their next head coach. Ka's going to remain with Charlotte for the playoff run. Phoenix is in the playoffs, and so it looks like Pomadou Ka is going to be the new head coach for Phoenix Rising at the corner of 38th and Washington. So
good for him.
Yep, good pickup for them.
I will
looking for his first head coaching gig. We'll see how it is in the USL Championship. Yeah. So there you go. Okay. What other? I know that there's one I know that we need to get into when it comes to VAR, and it
Let's
is
get into it.
the delict challenge on Danny Ings, where everyone associated with Manchester United was waving their hands frantically in the air like they did care after the fact, and it ended up by the end of it all costing Eric Ten Hag his gig, and so
Thoughts and prayers.
yes. So it ends up as a penalty scored by Jared Bowen.
Yeah.
It was contact with Matisse de Ligt and Danny Ings, 87th minute. You're tied at 1. It's out there for folks to stare at. What did you think?
Well, one, I love a good El Sacico. So that was what this. It feels like Lopetegui kept his job and Ten Hag lost it because of this. So congratulations to the referees for deciding the future of two very rich men.
Yeah.
I thought this was a foul. I'll be honest. But the problem is everyone thinks that when you're in the penalty area that you need to have like committed murder for it to be a penalty kick. And commit a foul in the penalty area, it's a penalty kick. That is the law of the game. And I thought it was a foul for tripping, and that's just what it is. Sorry.
And so by the time they look at it, and Dale Johnson, and Dale is one of our reference points for this segment every week, and Dale goes through the whole gamut of the deal, and he says the Premier League has been determined to get the term referees call quotes into the lexicon this season, and this would be a perfect example. If Russell Coote gave the penalty, you could see a reason, but it doesn't reach the clear and obvious threshold in English football to send the referee to the monitor. Bowen's penalty led to the 2-1 defeat. PGMOL has been talking up how much faster VAR reviews have gotten the season, down from an average of 70 seconds per game to 25 seconds. But this took 2.5 minutes from the foul to Coote pointing to the penalty spot and another 2.5 minutes until Bowen struck the ball. And so a secondary question about the use of the monitor, why is it there if we always see the referee change his decision? The answer is simple, Johnson writes. Though the waters are muddied by protocol. The screen is supposed to be a safety net on subjective decisions to give the referee the chance to spot an error by VAR. That's the idea, but it doesn't really work. This is Johnson op-edding here. Last season, there were 5 incorrect VAR interventions where the ref went to the screen, still changed his decision. Refs go to the monitor knowing they're being told that they have made a clear and obvious error, not just to have a second look. Limitations of this VAR process condition referees to think they've screwed up, so the fail-safe is in itself flawed. We'd all like referees to have more conviction and stick by their own call a few times, but it seldom happens. 2 referees rejected an overturn last season, yet only one was deemed correct. Michael Oliver turning down a review to rule out an Arsenal goal against Everton. So Johnson said this was an incorrect VAR intervention. Oliver had 1 recorded error as VAR last season when he didn't award the penalty in the Brentford Forest. And so this will go down as a mistake with David Coote. What about that?
I mean, I think I understand what his reasoning is, right? In the moment, you're looking at what the referee call. Was it a clear and obvious error? Now, again, I still think it was a foul for tripping in the box. But was it clear and obvious? I think that's the debatable term, right?
Right.
And just because I personally may have called it doesn't mean it's clear and obvious. I mean, I have this anytime I'm an AR, right? I center a lot, and this happens a lot at the youth level where we're all taking all the responsibilities. You get the pro level, you have center referees, you have ARs. But for me, I'll go from refereeing being the center for 2 games to an AR for 2 games. And I have to remember that if I'm looking for fouls, my standard isn't the same as their standard, the guy in the middle. And so that is something that I think with this situation specifically is, did the VAR use a different standard for judging? Was it clear and obvious error? And again, I think it was a foul. That's how I interpreted the situation. But I also agree with the line of saying, "Oh, hey, I think you made a mistake," right? Puts it in their head.
Yeah.
Error. And I do think that kind of going back to the red card we talked about earlier is, hey, let's make sure we got this right is a better way to frame it than, hey, I
Right.
think you got this wrong.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a better way to kind of flip that narrative in our heads when we're refereeing is like, hey, let's make sure we get it right. Because again, with the red card, we're valid. It's almost like validating the call, which I think is the difference between how do I say this? Let's go to football, American
Sure.
football, where
Sure.
you have a coach's challenge versus a under 2-minute review or a scoring play review, right? We check scoring plays in American football because we want to make sure we get the call correct, right? That is a monumental thing in this game. We want to make sure that we got the scoring play correct. That's not to say we're scrutinizing the referees on the field. We're saying let's make sure that the ball crossed the goal line. Let's make sure he got 2 feet or 1 foot in bounds. Let's make sure all these criteria were met. Okay, yeah, we're good, right? And that is a review process that involves video and everything. And sometimes it does. We say, hey, I think you need to check this again. Tell me, let's make sure you think that he got the 2 feet in or whatever it is, right? That is different than a coach saying, you got this wrong, right? Now, obviously, I think as a referee, if a coach says, oh, I'm challenging this, you got it wrong, I'm going to be more like, no, I don't believe
Yeah,
you.
see that is someone from the outside of the discussion.
Exactly.
That's not a peer identifier.
Right. And I think
where-
that's the problem is when a peer says, hey, I think you got it wrong,
Right.
you're going to look at that with a, well, maybe I did type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just a matter of phrasing it a little bit better. Like, hey, let's make sure we got it right versus I think you got it wrong. And again, it's because we want to make sure we get the right call more often than not. That's the goal here. We want to be as consistent and correct as possible.
All right. What else is going on in the world of soccer for you as POD other than you visiting us on Friday morning bet and leadoff to talk about this?
I'm going to try to record.
Uh-oh. Is this
episode
100?
100?
Yes.
Tonight or tomorrow. It will be not specific to anything going on right now necessarily. We might talk about the MLS schedule change. That is probably yeah, Abby, that's a great point. Let's take another look at that. Again, it's about making sure we get it right, not making sure that we correct necessarily, oh, you're wrong. But anyway, episode 100, we're probably going to look at bigger picture discussion points within U.S. soccer. Again, one of those might be a timely thing of the MLS proposed schedule change, which, by the way, I think, again, is vastly overblown. Yes, it gets cold in Minnesota. It also gets really damn hot in Houston, Texas, and no one complains about that. Whatever.
You can do it on a cold, rainy night in Minnesota. The same question I asked when Miami came in.
Yeah, can you do it on a 110-degree day in Kansas City?
Mm-hmm.
No one cares about that. The answer to that question.
Can you do it on a 40? Oh God, who was this? It was some old English center back who I think it was Brian Shawcross that Miami signed year 1.
Yes.
And he's like, he did it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke. I was like, yeah, now he's got to play 4 p.m. in Miami in June.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is the solution. If you think it's going to be too cold in Minnesota, Toronto, or Montreal, play at 4 p.m. Play at 3 p.m.
Before the sun goes down.
Well, to your point, they already do this. If you go look at the schedule, go look at like Montreal's schedule. They always start on the road because you can't play in March in Montreal.
Correct.
And yeah.
And
you need an icebreaker to get to the stadium.
The umbrella at the Big O is broken. So you can't.
Question. Is it broken or did it ever work?
Well, it never worked. But if you looked at Mike's photograph as they were flying into Montreal for the wild card game, the fabric is gone.
Oh, I didn't see that.
The fabric is gone from the umbrella at the Big O. So I was like, well, why can't they? And then I look at Mike's photograph and you see the fabric has disappeared. And you're like, oh, okay, now I know why. So yeah, it ain't even fit for doing something in the short center field now. So let us know with 100 because we have to do the appropriate huzzas and trumpets and celebrations and things like that.
I'm looking through Mike's. Oh, good. He's got a lot of tweets.
It's overhead.
Oh my God, it is. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
This is my stop, John. But I do want to tell you as we're leaving that Ted Roof has been fired at UCF. That's my parting shot.
Okay. All right. So we'll see.
Again.
All right. We'll see Jarrett tomorrow. And we'll see Bart tomorrow. Bart, once again, at Soccer for US POD, huzzas, hurrahs, and trumpets for getting
100 episodes.
100th episode.
It's taken like 3 years, but we got there.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all good. All right. So we'll see you on Friday, my friend. Thanks for dropping by, as always, for reffing down here and for letting us know what's going on in your mind when it comes to the national teams. Be safe and go get more caffeine.
Yeah, might need a nap at lunch.
Well, then get. Oh, what's the mug, by the way?
Well, we're on brand today, WVU. So we got the WVU Reed College of Media right here.
Yep.
Has
There it is.
WVU here because I'll cheer on the Mountaineers when they win. Congrats, Neil
Yes.
Brown. But you got us a win. Hopefully, you're still gone at the end of the year.
I'm with you. Win or tie. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Maybe you can coach the Atlanta United twos. We need a new coach there, right?
I haven't heard anything.
Oh, I thought that maybe that was another coach within the system.
I haven't. Well, I mean, we do have a new director of methodology.
That's what it is. Thank you.
We have a new director of methodology, and if you haven't
seen
or heard that interview with Javier Perez, I would recommend.
Maybe we need a new coach for the twos.
For a good 20 minutes there as well. So good stuff. We'll see.
Y'all be good. Happy Halloween week. Enjoy your trick or treats. Remember that you do need to screen your children's candy to make sure that they don't get all the good stuff.
Yes, like the Reese's Pieces, they go to me, and there goes Bart. All right, so here's the stuff. What's going on for the rest of the deal? Well, Knicks. Who else thinks the USWNT looked pretty average against Iceland? Score the both matches. Misleading player pool still needs improvement. Well, I mean, Emma Hayes, and we got into this with Bart. Emma's kicking the tires on some stuff, and having these friendlies gives her that latitude. Starting lineup was a little different. Folks getting first chances, things like that. And, it's one of those ideas that's there with Emma Hayes. Emma Hayes is experimenting. She's given folks a chance, given that hadn't had chances before, seeing how those combinations work. So, and you can do that against an Iceland. You can do that against an Argentina. So you can kick the tires on some things here. And I think that's what Emma Hayes is doing. So, yes, at the end of the day, you win. You make your subs at 45. You slam it into fifth gear and you finally get the goals on the board. You get the two, I want to say, in 3 or 4 minutes, and then you end up with the goal late from Sears at 90+3 to make it 3-1. So, so, I mean, she's trying things. Something that, to Bart's point, should have been done a long time ago in other cycles with other coaches, but you're seeing that now with Emma Hayes. You're seeing with Emma the kicking of the tires and saying, okay, does this person work here? What do they do here, 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 and here? So, yes, absolutely. So yeah, Abby's on top of it. Looking at newer players, giving them a shot. Andy, screen your kids' candy and throw the freaking candy corn straight in the trash. Yeah, see, Andy, I'm with you. So what we do here at Office HD is we try not to buy candy corn in the first place. And we can get into this discussion as we get closer to Thursday morning. And again on Friday morning in opening kickoff about purchases, making sure that the basket is properly weighted, because if you don't get a whole lot of kids coming by on Halloween, then you can make sure that you end up with the Halloween candy yourself. So it's all about weighting your options here and making sure that if you don't get a whole lot of folks, then they can help you out, you can help yourself out. Yeah, because you're always looking out for yourself when it comes to these purchases anyway. I don't know of how many folks are buying apples and putting them in, cutting them up and putting them in plastic bags and handing them out as part of the shtick. We don't do that. We get like the 250 piece deal down at the corner, and then we make sure that it's got like candy bars, Reese's, multiple candy bars. We don't get like the milk duds, the short milk duds or anything like that, or the Smarties. So we stick to the chocolate bars and things like that, and the Reese's specifically. So we'll get into that discussion. Put a bookmark in that. We'll get into that Thursday and then on Friday when we examine the fallout of Halloween. By the way, here's the rundown for the rest of the week. Let's see. So tomorrow, Keeler Hodge is joining us from the USL show, and the USL show now gets to talk postseason. And so we get to figure out what's going on there. We'll have Keeler on and any of the other folks from the USL show to talk about the season that was. We'll give regular season awards, and we'll also talk about the playoff matchups. And we've reached out to some teams to try to grab some coaches as they get ready for round one of the playoffs in Championship and League One this weekend. Wednesday is, as always, normal. Tyler will join us at 9:15 to talk about stuff on a Wall Pass Wednesday, see if we can track down Dylan Butler, busiest man in the Northeast, see if we can track down one of the busiest analysts out there in all of soccer, whether it's Super League or college, and Marion Crowder. Thursday, we may be having some folks from USL League One join us about some stuff off the field. We've got to double check that on Wednesday. 10 o'clock is the power hour, obviously, with Nino and Nico. And if you looked on our social media, the delivery made it to Peru. So Nino has his SDH scarf for his office. It made it from Atlanta to Lima, Peru in one piece. So he's got that, and it was really cool to see that photo. And then obviously Bart joining us at 9:05 on Friday morning. See if our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring can join us. And then obviously weekend whip around patent pending trademark coming sooner, hopefully, rather than later. We'll be talking about game number 2 in the series with Atlanta United and Inter Miami and Messi and friends, and see what that looks like. Remember, they've announced on social media 300 level open for Saturday, and we'll get into that as well. So that is the week. Abby is very smart. Abby got the gigantic tub of Reese's Cups. That is a fantastic play. And Nix has zero self-control, so he's got to wait to buy the candy until closer to the holiday. Yeah, because if we buy it like now in the week, then it's gone by the time we're done. It's like you get to Thursday, it's like, where'd the Halloween candy go? Oh, crap, we already ate it. So, no, I'm right there with you. Nix, I'm right there with you. Abby, fantastic judge of Halloween candy talent because of Reese's Cups. But, yeah, Andy, I'm with you. I don't know what the attraction is with candy corn. I really don't. And like I said, this is probably going to end up being part of the Wall Pass Wednesday discussion because Tyler's got kids and Dylan has kids. So, and Marion's around high schoolers when she's coaching. So it might be a part of the underpinnings of Wednesday and Thursday as we go through everything going on with Halloween and Halloween candy. But yeah, sorry, we got to buy Halloween candy this week. Crap. Okay. Other action that went on Major League Soccer over the weekend. It was no real surprise that you ended up with LA thumping Colorado, putting 5 on the board. 5-0. Ricky Puig had a brace. Joveljic had a brace. Apparently, I scored in the 52nd minute, so I don't think Major League Soccer will be the same. And the lineups for Colorado, and you're going to see some lopsided stuff. You did not have Georgi Mihailovic, who was injured in the season finale, regular season finale for Colorado. So you had in net, you had Stefan in net, the 4-2-3-1. Rosenberry, Maxu, Abubakar, Reggie Cannon, Olivier Larraz, and Connor Ronan were the 2 in front of them. Midfield 3, Jonathan Lewis, Omir Fernandez, Kevin Cabral. Point of the spear was Rafa Navarro. And so going up against that lineup for LAG, McCarthy in net, Nelson, Yoshida, Garces, Yamane. Midfield 3, Puig, Cerrillo, and Delgado. Paintsel, Joveljic, and Peck. So that's firepower to the nth degree. Puig, Paintsel, the Bishop, and Gabriel Peck. So I'm sure at times it looked like it was 4 going forward, and it ended up like a 4-2-4 for Greg Vanny. But they put 5 on the board. But once again, when you're in these best of 3s, in for a penny, in for a pound. I mean, if you lose 1-0, great. If you're chasing, you lose 5, you're going to get results like this. And so you get that with the LA-Colorado match. Orlando beat Charlotte by the score of 2-0. Torres and Ojeda scored, and Pep Biel once again, remember, got that red at 90+1. So he will not be a part of the discussion for match number 2 in the series. The other game late night, LAFC in Vancouver, it was at BMO. Denny Bouanga had a penalty in the 30th, and it was a foul that was inside. It was inside the 18, and it legitimately looked like it was one of those where it was handled by an extended right arm inside the 18, where the defender was trying his dead level best. I think it was Stuart Armstrong to explain it was, me as I was twisting, and that's what happened. But Jair Marufo and VAR looked at it and said it was contact with the right arm as the right arm was flailing out away from the body. It wasn't the body turn, but you still had the right arm extended. So Bouanga puts it home. and it was 1-0 then. Oliveira scored in the 57th. It was pretty much put to bed at that point. Ryan Gauld got an oh by the way at 90+5. And so LA gets win number 1 in that series. And that was it for the weekend. Remember, tonight you have doubleheader at 6:45 from TQL, which I'm guess means 6:55. You get the super hyper mega pregame show for FS1 because it's on the free side of Apple TV and on FS1 tonight, the doubleheader. Cincinnati's hosting NYCFC. Cincinnati has been trending downward. NYCFC has not. So I think that if you're looking for somebody to get a win that is a lower seed, I would look at NYCFC in the early game tonight. 8:50 allegedly is the start time for Seattle and Houston, so I'm guessing 9 o'clock because they want to wait for penalties and everything to pass, and you go through there, or the folks at FS1 and Apple TV are just going to fill time. So 8:50 at Lumen, allegedly. It is Houston Dynamo at Seattle. So 6:45 listed, probably 6:55. 8:50 listed, probably 9 o'clock. NYCFC at Cincinnati and Houston at Seattle. Let's take a peek at the juice boxes real quick, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. We'll go through and see if there's any other news before we get out of here. And we'll go through gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch, and how to watch it, even though we did just take a peek at what's going on in Major League Soccer. Juice boxes tonight, FC Cincinnati's at a -109, 90-minute draws a +284. NYC's a +267. I like NYC in that one. Seattle's a -116 at home. Draws a +259. Houston Dynamo's a +320. I like Seattle in that one. So keep an eye on those. Let's see what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it. Otherwise referred to as Soccer on TV, courtesy of our friends at Soccer America. And there's stuff on the Ballon d'Or, by the way. And apparently you're not going to get any involvement from anyone involving Real Madrid, because apparently it was leaked that Rodri is getting the award. And so you were going to get no Vinicius Jr. and no Jude Bellingham. That is not going to happen this morning. That neither of them are going to show up. No one is going to show up, apparently, from Real Madrid because the vote allegedly was leaked. And so now no one from Real Madrid's going to show up. Courtesy of our friends at One Football and The Athletic, here's how it reads this morning. Once it loads here down in the office. It appears Real Madrid believe that Rodri will be announced as the winner of the Ballon d'Or, beating Vinicius Jr. Vinicius Jr. not expected to attend Monday's ceremony in anticipation of the outcome. Madrid's director of institutional relations, Emilio Butragueño, is also not traveling, which will now not have club representation. Should he win, Rodri would be rewarded after winning the Premier League title with City and the Euro 2024 with Spain. Vinicius Jr. had been thought by many to be a front runner after scoring 24 goals, helping Madrid win 3 trophies, including La Liga and the Champions League. A win for Rodri would be the first for a Premier League player since 2008, when CR39 won it for Manchester United, and he won the first of his 5. So apparently no one is going. No one. So Fabrice Hawkins on the 280-character app, and I guess this might have been breaking news or something akin to it. So, yes. So Fabrice Hawkins, Vinicius Jr.'s entourage, his entourage is now convinced that he will not be named Ballon d'Or. Everyone in Madrid has this feeling. So, yeah. So do not be. Let's see. How do I phrase this? Do not be disappointed if you see the lack of a Real Madrid influence there at the Ballon d'Or to do. for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, so there won't be anybody from Real Madrid at the Ballon d'Or to do. And everyone is looking at Rodri as the winner of the Ballon d'Or. So ain't nobody from Real Madrid going to show. Turkish Super League, being in Espanyol, simulcast at 1 o'clock, Galatasaray and Besiktas. If you don't have BN or any of the BNs or Nuestra Tele CDO for the fans, TIC, Liga 1 Max, Liga 1 Max Pro, all of the above, Libertadores and Sudamericana access. You can get it at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out the show, helps out the network, and helps out all of the above. You can get to all of that stuff at Fanatis and become a true degenerate. I blame Jason. Once again, we talked about FS1 being the over-the-air version of the doubleheader tonight, and ESPN Deportes simulcasting doing Mallorca and Athletic Club at 4 o'clock. Gold TV has the Portuguese premiere at 4:15, AVS and Porto. ESPN Plus simulcasting the Liga match. The Golazo Network has the Ballon d'Or ceremony. It's at 3:30 Eastern time. Paramount Plus has League One, Blackpool and Wigan at 4, and the Argentine Primera at 8 with Huracan and Central Cordoba, and that is at 8 o'clock. So soccer on the college side of things, just one match, Utah Tech and Utah Valley. So it is a UAC event on the men's side. That is at 8 o'clock on the Plus. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, and how to get the most out of your soccer viewing experience today. So, gossip on the board. PSG have joined Real Madrid in the race to sign Trent Alexander-Arnold. Liverpool have inquired about RB Salzburg's right back Amar Dedic, a possible replacement. Wolves have made Watford attacking midfielder Georgi Shakvatadze a primary target in January. 3-liter paper. What would Shakvatadze cost to bring in to Atlanta United? Just saying. Real Madrid's Florentino Perez preparing the groundwork to replace Carlo Ancelotti with Xabi Alonso, according to Sport. Former Italy striker Mario Balotelli has a medical book today, moves closer to signing to Genoa. He's a free agent after leaving Turkish side at Adana Demirspor. That's from Fabrizio Romano. West Ham are interested in Ademola Lookman from Atalanta. Julian Lopetegui hopes to boost his attacking options. Manchester City set to offer Josko Vardiol an improved contract worth £150,000 a week to extend his stay by 2 years to 2030. England and Chelsea midfielder Cole Palmer remain committed to the Blues despite being linked with a move away, including a return to Manchester City. AC Milan interested in offering Liverpool's Chiesa a route back to Serie A. Mats Hummels could leave Roma in January despite only joining the Serie A club as a free agent in the summer. AC Milan will look to extend the contract of Tijani Reinders amid interest from Manchester City and Barcelona. And Daniele De Rossi could be in line for a shock management return to Roma over a month after being sacked by the club, with the current boss Ivan Juric under pressure after a 5-1 thrashing by Fiorentina. So De Rossi's out. He might be back in. That's from Rai Sport, according to Football Italia. And so that is the rundown of all of the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. So getting ready for Tuesday, getting ready for the week, getting ready for all the things, getting ready for Halloween. Once again, remember tomorrow, Keeler Hodges in the USL. Any leftovers from the weekend, we'll talk about what happens tonight in Major League Soccer. Anything left over from Atlanta United. Remember, the 300 level will now be open for the weekend with Inter Miami and Messi and friends coming to town on Saturday. 7:10 kick, a little earlier than normal for the sake of television. So we'll see what happens there with all of that. As always, great to catch up with Bart, great to catch up with Jarrett, great to catch up with you. And so what that means is we'll be back in a little less than 22 to let you know what's going on in and around the world of soccer here on the morning show on the SDH Network. If you missed it, Adrian Forbes, the interview about the new franchise in Texoma, the Quad Cities of Sherman, Ada, Ardmore, and Denison. League One coming up in 2025. He has added head coach to his technical director, sporting director duties. And so we caught up with him, and that interview posted to the network on the weekend. So obviously we're going to keep an eye on everything going on around the leagues. USL coming into the playoffs. Keeler Hodges talking about that tomorrow with championship in League One. We're also chasing coaches as well. So thanks for dropping by, as you always do. Thanks for putting up with all the shenanigans on a daily basis. And since it is north of 2 hours, just a little after 11 o'clock Eastern time, it's the end of the show. That means I get to do this. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. We'll be back at it again tomorrow for another go round of the morning show here on the SDH Network. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you.